straight from the bit to the rider's elbow, just as it is in traditional dressage. But the Western bridles are obviously different. You have to be very gentle and very careful with your hands. I would like for my riders to demonstrate free jogs, which may be done rising or sitting, but the horse is asked to go on a long range. You do not want your horse to charge away. You want them to stretch forward and down. You can use your posting to help the horse maintain their rhythm. Or if you're sitting, you can sit back a little bit, use the back muscle, and ask the horse to come back. Very good. Go ahead and pick up your contact. And the goal should be that the horse doesn't change pace, just their praise. They pick up their head, they do not fight with the rider's hand. The rider should be riding primarily off their feet, not their hands. Okay. Cassidy, if you would, next turn, come through the turn and ride a little bit of shoulder in. Shoulder in to the right. Now this is a little bit more. Turn off the rail and ride toward the bleachers so they can see. It's hard to appreciate the laterals when they're doing it alongside of you. Okay, now look ahead and shoulders to the right. There you go. Now when you get to the middle of the next long haul, turn again and shoulder in again toward the bleachers. There you go. Does everybody see he's maintaining his bend? He's able to give on our inside rein, and he stays in the bridle. Okay, riders, you can go ahead and walk. Now, do we have any questions? Somebody's got to have something. Yes. Pardon? It can be a curved bit. It can be a snap mouthpiece. There are some restrictions, like French bits and things like that. Thalia has a very broad knowledge of all the bit systems that are allowed. I keep my horses very mild bits. My business work primarily from seat play. But you do have a little bit of wiggle room with what you ride in. So you can kind of go with what your horse is most comfortable with. Anything else? Yes. At this point, Thalia, have they changed that yet? Can you still ride two hands with a curve, or do you have? Yes. Okay. Yeah. There was talk about changing that. That hasn't occurred yet. Anything else? Okay. Our next little set here is going to be with Mr. Jim Skidmore. He's going to carry over the goals that I've outlined here and show you how to take a Western pleasure horse and move them up into Western dressage. Wilbur here, for example, actually started his life as a pleasure. And from there, he has moved into Western pleasure. He didn't quite really fit, so he's really found his niche now. And finds 5 years spent her lifetime on the paint horse circuit doing Western pleasure and Western horsemanship. So he's got a couple of old pros, and then he has a young horse that we are just starting. And he'll be talking a lot about her in what we've been doing to get her moved into the Western Dressage arena. So I give you Mr. Jim Skidmore now.
Okay, I'd like to talk to you for just a minute. As Leah told you, all of these horses have been very successful in the weekend shows and Western pleasure. And I think maybe the first thing I want you to know is you don't need a special horse or a different horse to compete in the Western Dressage. It's not a Western pleasure horse doing a dressage test. It's a little bit different than that. We've got to have a little bit of different movement. We've got to have the horse more engaged. We've got to have the horse going forward. And today, we've got two horses in here that are very seasoned at a little bit of everything and have been very successful with the Western pleasure and the open shows, like I said. But they've also been very successful in the Western Dressage and a little bit on the training of what we're going to do. Then we're going to show you with Gabby and her horse. Her horse is, it's not really young by horse years, it's 7, but this is about the second spring that she's really had some consistent riding and just the second year that she's been in a show ring experience. So we'll give you a little different view for this. And if all three of you would just pick up a little Western pleasure jog for me and just kind of keep your horse framed in. I'll talk to them as we go along. Now, we're kind of working a little bit with Thalia's horse here and Cassidy's horse to kind of pick them up and bridle them into the bed. You still want to keep them driving up with the rear end. Like in Western pleasure, we don't want them to be sloppy in the rear end. We want them to move forward. And with Gabby's horse, and Gabby, just loosen a little bit with your rein. Now, Gabby's horse is kind of young and inexperienced with a lot of things. So we're trying to get the hind end movement first. Right now, we just want her to be relaxed. We're just using the reins to kind of keep her head in front of us. And as we go along, we're going to show you a little bit of how we start to get the hind end engaged and get the horse to move up under itself. Because with your Western Dressage, you've got to keep a little bit more of the horse being engaged, a little bit more of the horse driving forward. But our theory with this is, if we want to bridle the horse up and we don't want as much movement underneath, the horse ought to give that to us. If we start to bridle the horse a little bit more and start to drive with the leg, the horse ought to be responsive to that and ought to be perfectly submissive with that. So that's a little what we're trying to do here. Cassidy, why don't you go ahead and lope off, and Gabby, loosen a little bit more on your reins. Now, you'll see as we go along, just give me a nice little Western pleasure look. If you have to do a little work with them, that's fine. Thalia, you can go ahead and lope off a little and just give me a nice little Western pleasure low. Now in the Western pleasure for your open shows, you definitely want to have the horse working up under itself with a little bit more relaxed rein. And you'll see when we get into the starting to make it a little bit more like a Western Dressage horse that we're going to push this horse up into the bit a little bit. And I'll explain a little bit to you right here. With the two older horses that Thalia and Cassidy have, we're asking them a lot more. With Gabby's horse, we're just trying to keep her relaxed, let her jog. We're not asking her to get on the bit or become collected. You guys can go ahead back to the walk now. And we're just trying to keep her head in front of her, let her relax. We're trying to get her to drop her head down a little bit through relaxation, through keeping her body where it should be lined up, and waiting on her to come to us. As we get her driving off our legs, then eventually in her training we'll start to collect her a little bit. But right now we've got to get her to the point where she's a little bit more receptive to our legs. Okay, now, Thalia, Cassidy, let's go ahead and pick up a little trot. And what I want you to do is start to develop a little bit more of a trot that would be good for us in Western dressage. And you can go ahead and now take up 2 hands, Cassidy, and start to drive them up into the bit. Now, as you notice with Gabby, she's starting to post a little bit. We're not starting to pull the horse's nose in yet. What we want to do is just get her to move forward, take a little longer stride with the rear end, which is the other horses are starting to do it in more of a frame